Hello, friends and beautiful people. It's Catherine. Hello. Hi, and welcome to this talk. Fear, desire, and the fascia. Very excited to discuss this topic with you here today. Say hello. Let me know you're here if you're watching later. Hashtag replay. Hope everybody's doing well, feeling good. And if you're not, I wish you many blessings. Hi, Shantae. Let's see. I'm gonna make sure I'm live in the right places. I'm gonna share. No, I spelled the title wrong. Golly gee. That's what happens when I do stuff without my glasses on. Say hello, let me know you're here. I'm gonna share this to a couple groups of mine. Boom, there's one. Don't be shy. Hi, Jante. Do. We can't be perfect, right? So the best thing you can do is just do. Just put it out there. Put it out there, and the rest is gonna be okay. It works out one way or another. Let's see. Facebook's being squirrely today. So, hi, Diane. I'm very excited to talk about this. And it's something that I've talked about before. It's an advanced concept for sure. But not really. And as you'll find, as I'm going to explain this today, hey, Crystal, it's not that out there at all. And it actually makes some sense, okay? So I am gonna talk about it a little bit in terms of ascension, but I'm also going to talk about it as our human physical embodiment, our physical journey, our human journey, because they're never not connected, right? Everything is connected. There is no closed system. Nothing exists in a vacuum. So when we talk about ascending into the physical light matrix aspect or representation of us, it is very much a physical ascension process on this planet. It is a physical ascension, meaning we take the body with us. It's going to change form. And the fascia is the bridge for that, as well as the heart. So I'm going to talk about that in a second. But very quickly, I absolutely want to be up front here and let you know I am absolutely selling something. 100%. I'm not going to try to hide it from you or be clever and kind of spring it on you. I'm telling you right now, I am selling a program that is absolutely amazing, and you're going to want to get in it. It's just a done deal. I don't ever give a hard sell. I tell you what I'm offering, and I invite you in. I preface it by letting you know what it's going to feel like, what this is for, who it's for, and then you make a decision on your own. I never give a hard sell. I never slide into your DMs. I never do any of that stuff. I don't even do funnels. Everything I offer is totally organic because it either resonates with you and it's something you want, or it isn't. So that's entirely up to you. But I am absolutely selling something. It's Momentum of Flow. It is an absolutely incredible program. It's unique. It's an incredible space of support for the 4-body system: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And at the price point of $88 a month, and you can cancel anytime. That's why I've done it as a monthly membership. You can get in there for just 1 month if you want to. You're going to want to stay. But that's an option for you. You can just do it for 1 month and skedaddle. So it's going to incorporate somatic movement. I call it somatic sync. In releasing fear, although we're going to talk about the term releasing fear in a moment because it's an integration, it's a processing. We're not releasing anything necessarily because that would imply that something exists outside of us. It doesn't. Especially when we're talking about emotions, the better way to say it would be transmutation, transforming these energies, alchemizing them. We don't release them, they just change form. So we're going to talk about moving through fear, consciously moving fear through the body, alchemizing it, turning into fuel, creative fuel, and working with our desires. Both of these cause distortions in the fascia, your fear and your desire. So we're going to talk about that here today too. So momentum of flow is not just metaphorical in the sense that we're talking about flow and movement in our lives in general. I'm talking about flow and movement in our lives very specifically as it relates to the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual. So that is how I approach the work that I do as an elevated consciousness coach. And if you are new to me, that's my gig. That's my jam. I'm an elevated consciousness coach. I'm an author. I'm a speaker. I am a Renaissance woman in the world of talking about all things spiritually related and spiritual ascension. I've been doing this work for over 2 decades now. Moving from a brick and mortar practice, starting as energy healing and as a Reiki master teacher many times over, as a hypnotherapist, and then moving my work exclusively online, all happening over a 20-year plus arc. So everything I offer comes from this arc of accrued experience and wisdom, and I get to offer to you because I believe in being of deep and profound service to my community. And this is just yet another offering that mirrors and reflects that. Does this information come from downloads you receive? Always. The information that I've offered for some time now in my world and in my work has not come from me. It comes through me. I am an embodied conscious channel. What does that mean? That means I'm walking around, talking, channeling right now. I'm a voice-activated channel. So when you listen to my words, you are not only receiving the transmission of the words themselves, you're receiving the transmissions in between the words, in the pauses, in the spaces. You are activated in this space, in other words, when we are having this soul-to-soul exchange. So this information comes through me, not from me. And this very much is the work of not only my own progression through a great deal of shadow over the last, let's just say 14 months, but also through breakthroughs and moving and removing layers and layers and layers of masks of past versions of self, old ways of being, this constant removal, which never stops, by the way. And those of us who are here to be radical, revolutionary visionaries, it definitely never stops. We keep revealing more and more layers the more we let go, the more we surrender. And so the more I have let go and surrendered, the more of these downloads I've been able to receive about these connections. So I started talking about the fascia quite a while back when I started talking about timelines. So one of my areas of expertise is talking about all things time and timelines, how humans translate time here in 3D, about timelessness, about zero time, about spiritual time, solar feminine time. When I was talking a while back about timelines, I was talking about how the fascia interrelates with timelines. So that's great, Brooke. This will be here, and I can tag you on it right now so that you'll see it. You'll see me responding to you. Let's see. Well, you can catch it later. I'll tag you on it. My computer's not letting me do that right now for whatever reason, but you can come back and watch it later. Also, if you're on my email list, I'm sending this replay out to my email list. So getting back to what I was saying, that the fascia relates to so many things with our physical ascension, but also our human journey, okay? So 2 things that you need to know about bridges in the physical body that help us physically ascend. We have 2, I call them assemblage points of consciousness, okay? Assemblage points of consciousness are places within our physical body where we kind of collate a bunch of information that is in constant communication with the etheric, the astral, the cosmic, the galactic. And those 2 spaces are the heart, the actual physical human heart, and the heart chakra, in a more expanded sense, front and back of the body, and also the fascia. So for those of you who don't know what the fascia is, it is an interwoven, if you think of it as interwoven sheets of connective tissue, okay, and it forms a web, a matrix that has tensional integrity. So everything in and around the skeleton, we've got our organs, we've got our tissues, we have got our muscles, right? Tendons. The fascia is the connective tissue structural network, the tensional network. And it is also you could think of it as a fiber optic network because it has a piezoelectric effect that when anything impacts it, it emits electrical impulses. So it's always communicating. It's always communicating with all the systems in the body. All the systems in the body can be communicated to through the fascia. But it is also a transmitter and receiver for cosmic galactic energy, okay? So much like the heart, which is in constant communication, you could think of our heart as the command center of ascended consciousness. It is an assemblage point where information comes to roost. And it is information that is doing two things. It's feeding us in our physical density to let us know what's going on. And to the degree that we receive it or don't receive it has a lot to do with how we experience ascension symptoms, which are the growing pains of ascending into higher consciousness levels. And the heart is also sending signals, impulses from our human to our galactic self, our higher self, our God self, to source, okay? So the fascia does a similar thing. The fascia is always this line of communication, and it is the first line of communication if you think of it in terms of the density of the body, because it's right under the skin. And we have 3 different levels and layers of the fascia, but the fascia as a network, as a webbing, as a matrix, it is always in communication with that higher aspect of self, whether you call it higher self, whether you call it your oversoul, whether you call it God, source, your God self. It is constantly in that communication. So beneath the skin, this web or this matrix is holding tensional integrity for the skeleton. Otherwise, we would collapse. Okay, the skeleton does so much to keep the body in tensional integrity as well. But the webbing of the fascia is the support system. And it allows flexibility, okay? It allows flexibility, and this is a key point and key takeaway here. So this holds the body together, the tissue, the muscles, the organs, the tendons. It's the physical matrix inside the body, right? That is made of proteins, of collagen fibers, and sulfur molecules, okay? It is a liquid crystalline lattice and a network. And this is also what holds the hydration system of the entire human body as well. So this is why we need to keep so hydrated. And especially as we are, burning through these energetic frequencies of elevating our consciousness, it is taking a toll on the body. The body is literally burning to keep up. It's metabolizing and calibrating our metabolism so we can keep up with the accelerated frequencies of ascended consciousness. Your fascia is helping you to do this, okay? That's why we need to stay hydrated. It allows you to stay flexible while you're going through these upgrades. So are you guys following me so far? So the water content of the fascia is really, really important because this is a hydration system. So when you think about the fascia as a hydration system, I want you to close your eyes for a moment. I want you to think about Niagara Falls. Okay, so Niagara Falls, New York, which actually borders Ontario, Canada as well. It straddles the line between 2 countries and a province and a state. But think of all of the energy in Niagara Falls. And there's a very powerful power station there, the Niagara Mohawk Power Station, which Tesla was very instrumental in creating and perpetuating their ability to take the power of Niagara Falls and turn it into electricity. Okay, read about it; it's fascinating. And I come from Buffalo, New York, so Niagara Falls is my playground when I was a kid. I used to go there all the time, and going to the Niagara Mohawk electrical station, hydration, the electric station of Niagara Mohawk, right on Niagara Falls, and you could go to the observatory there and learn all about the history of Tesla being there. Fascinating stuff. You can research it and look it up. So when you close your eyes and you think about Niagara Falls, think of it as an energy source, okay? So much power, right? If you think about, you know, the volatility and the movement of Niagara Falls, you know, millions upon millions of liters of water going down this cascade, the Niagara Escarpment, and generating so much energy from the movement of this water, okay? Your fascia is kind of like the same thing. And not really on a smaller scale. That's just how our minds might encapsulate it, but it's the same amount of energy. And especially now, as we're experiencing so many accelerated frequencies on this planet, moving us into elevated consciousness, the fascia is working double time, triple time. So we need to hydrate it so much more. That's why drinking water all the time is so important for our fluidity, for our ability to move and stay flexible with these energies, okay? So the amount of force exerted upon the fascia due to accelerated frequencies on this planet, it creates a kind of piezoelectric effect, meaning that creates an electromagnetic current in the body. So it allows for a greater dissemination of information that you could think of as coming from our galactic self, from God, from Source, from the photon belt. And we're converting it into usable energy in the body. And it's communicating through this interconnected web, this connective tissue, to every organ, every tendon, every tissue, every cell. This includes cell-to-cell communication in the body. So this is an incredibly powerful network, okay? That's why you feel so good when you just do a simple stretch. You know, if you were to just right now stretch your arm like this, stretch your shoulder out and breathe. Don't forget to breathe. And then you notice when you release that, it just feels open. The energy feels like it's been liberated, right? That's your fascia at work, okay? So this is a protective web. It also prepares the body to receive and embody liquid plasmic light. So when you think about the emissions that are coming to this planet from the photon belt, for instance, okay, so we have a great central sun of Alcyon in the Pleiades. This is like Earth's library of information, and it is constantly through photon emissions emitting information to this planet, letting us know who we truly are. That's the quick and dirty version of talking about this, is emissions that are constantly letting us know through these transmissions, emissions from the great central sun, our library in the Pleiades, Earth's library in the Pleiades, kind of allowing us to remember who we truly are, allowing us to be in the truth of our higher spiritual selves, and that we go on, we're infinite, we're eternal. Everything you're asking for, you already hold it. You already are that. There's a timeline of you already exploring it. Every desire, every impulse that you have, that you envision as something that benefits or improves your life, there's an aspect of you already exploring that. You already are that. You wouldn't have awareness of it otherwise, okay? And through these emissions, we're constantly going through different translations of these kinds of remembrances. On a soul level, your soul is saying to you, hey, this is who you truly are. Hey, this is who you really are. Remember, we're already this. We're already that, okay? And to the degree that we hold a flexibility in the body, we are either rejecting it out of fear, or if the desire is so strong and we have these thoughts or feelings relating to these old versions of selves that say, I'm not worthy of that, or I can't have it, or I screwed that up before, so I'm not allowed to have it again, or I'm a failure, or this or that, our desires can also be rejected. And it creates more and more inflexibility and rigidity in the body over time, and we feel it through the fascia, okay? So on the ascension level, the spiritual level, that's kind of all I want to say about that right now, because in Momentum of Flow, we're going to go into this in greater detail, because that's really the space for that. But I wanted to lay a foundation here that this is This is a first line of transmission, if you will, and receptivity. You are transmitting signals from the fascia too, okay? But you're also receiving a lot, okay? This is a first point of contact for the pre-crystalline shift as well. So as I mentioned, our journey of ascension is a physical one. We're going to experience physical ascension on this planet. We're going to take the body with. It just changes form, okay? Now, we can think of a different kind of ascension as death, right? Where we discard the body, we leave the body behind. And because we have such a strong death program consciousness on this planet, which isn't really real, but that's a conversation for another time, we equate ascension with leaving the body. That's not really how it works. It's stages of ascension, states of awareness that we occupy through a resonant match to whatever you want to call it, higher dimensional reality, higher levels of density, okay? Because it is different densities. We're in a third and fourth density here now, and we will move up in stages of awareness to higher, or I should say, inverse, lesser densities. But their density is all the same. We'll still have an awareness of self. We'll still have some duality. Even in the lower hubs of 5D, we do have some duality there because the dimensions are shifting. Also a topic for another course at another time. But this is our first kind of preparation for the plasmic light ascent, of taking the body with, but having it change form into a pre-silicate matrix. So we're already experiencing stages of this, right? When we are in deeper states of meditation or trance consciousness, we're not really aware of the body, right? We feel light. We feel as if we exist beyond the density of it. So we already can know what that feels like, okay? We can already have awareness of that. And certainly people who practice transcendental meditation and deep trance meditation, even deep, very deep theta and delta states of hypnotherapeutic endeavors or sessions, you can experience this as well. So we already have a sense of it. Humans are already equipped to be aware of that level of consciousness. We're graduating into it, right? We're initiating into it. So when hydrated, we can flex properly, okay? Now, we can lubricate the fascia, hydrate the fascia in more ways than just drinking our water, which is a good cue. Now, think of a plant. And any of you who have nursed a plant back to health and have employed all your best tactics to nurse that plant back to health, you understand that the plant takes energy, water and sunlight into it so that it can grow, so that it can flower and blossom and evolve, right? So humans are very, very similar, okay? So you could think of the fascia as these connective tissue pathways that allow us to take up nutrients, that nourish all parts of the body. If you've ever nursed a plant back to health, and I call myself the Lazarus of the plant world because I've nursed many plants back to health, you know, I understand that it's not just watering the plant and giving it sunlight. I put my hands on the leaves and I imagine the energy of my hands coming through my heart, going into the veins of the plant, into the capillaries of the plant, right? Into the tissues of the plant, and letting my words of love and encouragement nourish the plant, okay? So humans are very similar. When you are having thoughts about yourself that are nurturing, that are supportive, that are loving, doesn't that feel then that you are nurtured, that you are supported, that you are nourished, that you have the nutrients to remain flexible in your life, to have, whether you want to call it mental resilience, emotional intelligence, all of those things would be true when we talk about flexibility. This contributes to how the fascia works. if it's getting the nutrients from within of good, nourishing thoughts, having, you know, a positive outlook on even the most challenging situations. Like, I don't know how we're going to deal with this, but I know we're going to figure it out. Because, hey, Catherine, you're smart. You've been through worse stuff. You're going to figure it out. You're going to be okay. You know, love yourself through the whole thing. I don't care how challenging or adverse the situation may be. We're going to figure it out. We got it. Because we got work to do on this planet. And we're not going to be put down by this. We're not going to be suppressed by this. We're not going to be, you know, set back by this. And just those words to self and the feelings behind the words, very nourishing, right? So on the other hand, when we have thoughts that are aligned with extreme amounts of fear, right, that have to do with maybe traumatizing circumstances that we've had, you know, adversities that we feel like we didn't triumph over in the best way possible, or, you know, feeling like we failed at something, and that, you know, maybe our own words are echoing in our head, or the words of someone else telling us that we're a failure, or we'll never amount to anything, or things like that. And to the degree that we internalize those things, not very nourishing, right? Your body is always listening. Your fascia is always listening. Your cells are always listening. Your tissues, your organs, your muscles, your tendons, always listening. The blood, always listening. And it's the fascia that's disseminating this information. We take in things that are not nourishing. It's disseminating whatever information you give it to all parts of the body. Okay? So this fiber optic network, it's communication in between all networks of the body. It contributes also to cell communication. It stabilizes the body, okay? It stabilizes the body. So if you've got fascia that is nourished and nurtured and loved and held, and you help to, you know, stabilize your own fascia through good nourishing thoughts and feelings, it's going to support your body more and more. Right? And if it's supporting your physical body more and more, if you have a strong physical body, you're going to be able to take in higher levels of information, if you want to call it cosmic wisdom, galactic wisdom. You're going to be able to take that in a little more easily too, without rejecting it. Okay? It stabilizes you. When the fascia is blocked by constant stress, and this is a really, really important thing I want to talk about here. So when the fascia is blocked by constant stress, through trauma, through wounding, through, you know, emotional tension, it destabilizes the body. It takes structural integrity out of the fascia. Okay? You feel less supported. The fascia stiffens. It contracts. It loses hydration, or can't hold hydration properly, would be another way to say it. This kind of trauma or wounding or emotional tension, when we can't consciously move it through the body and resolve it, the fascia stiffens because it holds the blockage until we move it out. So, you know, at this stage in the game, we all know that, you know, chronic pain, pain that we experience drawn out over years and years of time, it has an underlying emotional component, okay? So we've seen also miraculous healings and discoveries. You know, there are a lot of people on the planet now practicing the divine healing intelligence of being able to consciously move where we're holding trauma in physical parts of the body out. And it's not correct to say we're moving it out, we're transmuting it. Because to move it out is to say, well, then that energy stops there. It doesn't. No energy stops. It just changes form. It transmutes, right? There's no new energy being created, and there's no old energy being destroyed. It actually it changes form, okay? This is one of the laws of thermodynamics. So when we are thinking that we're moving energy out, we're moving pain out, we're moving fear out, what we're really doing is transmuting it into another form of usable energy. And then when we're consciously working with these ideas and premises, we take that energy and we change how we want to make it usable, okay? We can turn it into creative fuel. We get to alchemize it. And every single one of us on this planet, I know we throw around this word as maybe a spiritual buzzword a little too much, you know, the alchemy, or alchemizing, or being alchemists. We truly are. Mutable energy is our clay. Energy is our clay. Human beings are the keepers of 3D in the sense that we are the energy movers and creators. We take it from the etheric and we use it as clay to turn it into form or matter, something we can have a tangible connection with. So humans, a 3D reality is our playground. We don't think of it that way. It's just that we haven't been taught to consciously manipulate or allow these energies to be mutable in a way where we feel we have some, you know, control over that. And we always have control over how we want to respond to anything. We get to make that energy mutable. But if we don't feel powerful, if we feel far too affected by our past trauma and our wounding and our fear, we simply won't do that. We simply won't be in the level of awareness where we can see that even, okay? And those of you who have, you know, come from a place of maybe deep shadow work and transformation of shadow into, you know, feeling your wholeness and knowing your wholeness, it's never that we're not whole. We're always whole, but we don't have the experience of feeling whole until we work with some shadow and make it conscious and are able to consciously move it through the body. And then we can say, oh, yes, I feel my wholeness now. I know that this is my truth, right? But when we're in that pain, we're in that trauma, we're in that wounding, we're not in a place where we can see it. So let's just talk about fear for a second. So when you're dealing with this level of fear, any level of fear, unless we're talking about, you know, a physical fear of stepping off a curb and then in front of an on-moving vehicle, that's real fear. That means that we need to respond to that, and there's only one way to respond to it: get back up on the curb, right? I'm talking about the fear that lives as like mind monkeys, that says that we're not good enough. The fear that if I do this, I'm going to fail. The fear that if I put myself out there, I'm going to be judged harshly. The fear that I can't possibly be confident talking about these things or doing these things. I'm incapable of holding money. I'm incapable of working responsibly and dealing responsibly with money, or too much accountability, or delegating to other people. These kind of mind monkeys, the fear that I'm talking about in that respect, these are just assumptions. And much of the fear that we deal with and use as excuses or reasons for why we can't have or do or be something, they are just assumptions. So when I'm talking about fear in this way, you could easily swap out that word. I'm talking about your assumptions because they are not true. You've given them enough real estate in your energy. You've given them actual physical real estate in the body, in body parts. And if you notice that you work with maybe a certain level of trauma, or you do a certain level of shadow work on a particular theme, there's one part of the body that you notice more than any other part of the body. So this is where it's taking up valuable energetic real estate within you in the density of the body. So this is a really powerful, if you want to call revelation to make, is that if you hold on to a fear long enough, it will live in you. It will live in a body part. So people who have dealt with chronic pain and trauma for years and years and years without consciously moving it through the body and making a connection with that and then loving this pain back into wholeness, these people will have, you know, chronic issues and pains. Fibromyalgia is a great example of people who have, you know, deep-seated trauma that they're not willing to see. They you know, are not in a place where they even know about ascension, or they know about shadow work, and they just think that I'm in constant pain. I'm, you know, why am I being punished? Why am I being singled out by the universe? Or, you know, I'm going to use my husband as an example. Chronic pain on the left side of his body and his shoulder. Yes, it was triggered by a mountain biking injury, but it was years and years and years ago. He's had many other mountain biking injuries. He's one of those technical riders who does like big, you know, rides on boulders and over tree roots and jumps and stuff like that. He's had many injuries. But this particular injury on the left side of his body, behind his left trapezoid, he's convinced that it's just his punishment for whatever. He's being punished and he'll always have this pain and he's just going to deal with it, and instead of looking at the deeper emotional causes. And you might be saying, but Catherine, can't you help him with this? You can't force healing on anyone. I'm his wife. I'm not his coach. So I can bring these things up and I can talk to them. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, right? So some people will just never make that connection. Or they've also associated pain or fear with, I'm just this person. In other words, it becomes part of their identity. And so losing the pain, especially if you've had it for a number of years, and all the associated emotional underlying tension that goes with it, if it's become part of the identity, people are reluctant to give that up, because then they say, who am I without this? Okay? Are you guys with me so far on that? I hope. And I'm going to look at the comments here because I'm seeing some comments. Okay. Hold on one second. I need to refresh my page here because it's giving me problems. And I see that you have some questions. And I encourage you guys to, those of you who are here live, or even watching the replay, go ahead and ask your questions. All right, Dina says, yes, that makes sense. Okay, Corey says, what I don't understand, when I've done so much work, I'm quite aware shadows are not huge. I struggle with connecting to my body, so I've not yet been able to release chronic pain. All right. It's actually a lot simpler than you think it is. It's actually a lot simpler. So when we are in the space of doing this shadow, it is the emotion that we need to connect with. Yes, you can connect with the memory, but here's what you do when you connect with the memory. You run the risk of re-traumatizing yourself, because when you connect directly with the memory, you are reliving it in a sense. If you connect with the emotion, and you are in what I call compassionate witness energy. So you go into the energy of being an objective observer. And it's like looking at yourself, sitting in front of yourself. And this is why I do this with my shadow work, is I imagine sitting cross-legged with my shadow in front of me. So this aspect of me that is struggling, that is suffering, perhaps it's my inner child. Perhaps it's when I was a teenager and endured some level of trauma, or when I was a young adult and married and going through a really painful time in the marriage, whatever it might be. It's important to connect with the emotion, because the emotion itself, not the memory necessarily, the emotion will tell you where it lives in your body, okay? And you can use, it's a very simple script that you can use. Divine Healing Intelligence, show me where you live. And you say, Divine Healing Intelligence, deep disappointment, show me where you live. And you'll get the answer. So when I was first becoming aware of these connections, and I've always been connected to the idea that there is a physical counterpart to all emotional themes, because it starts with the emotional first, because the way that density of energy moves, it lands in the physical last. So anything that shows up as pain, even especially chronic pain, that's where it shows up last. That's where it presents itself last, because the physical is the highest form of density. So it's, there's a spiritual lesson, a karmic lesson, something that we are working through in a different timeline. And it shows up in this timeline because it presents a powerful theme for us, a lesson that the soul wants to journey through and learn and integrate in this lifetime. So it shows up there. It'll show up in the etheric. It'll show up in the aura. It'll show up then in the emotion. It'll show up in the mental field, the thought fields. All of this before it lands in the density of the physical body, okay? So when you connect with divine healing intelligence, it's like reverse engineering all the way back to where it shows up first. Because divine healing intelligence is always the same spectrum or bandwidth of energy that is source, that is God, if you want to call it that. The field of the universal divine mind, if you want to call it that, okay? Divine healing intelligence, show me where disappointment lives in my body. And so this is what I was doing. This is what I was doing in January and February, and I was dealing with deep levels of feeling unwanted, of feeling disappointed, of going through memories and all of the emotional fragmenting, all the emotional tension of feeling unwanted. I'm talking like classic middle child stuff in my family. A rejection that also happened in my family very recently, where it just brought up old triggerings and old woundings of feeling unwanted as a child that I had to deal with and grapple with, and this deep disappointment of self, where it kind of projected and reflected into feelings of this deep disappointment is like, that's how my family must feel about me. A deep disappointment. That's not real. That was my projection because I was feeling deep disappointment for self because I couldn't figure out why I was so unwanted. Okay? And this goes into all kinds of really deep stuff about not being breastfed as a kid, being passed around from anyone who could take me when I was a kid, because when I was born, my older brother, who is just slightly more than a year older than me, was very ill. He was born with a cleft palate and a cleft lip. He had to be fed through a tube for the first year and a half of his life. So when I came around, he was born January 27th, 1971, and I was born January 19th, 1972, aka that's known as Irish twins. So when I came around, my family, my mom, my dad did not have time for me, and understandably so. So I wasn't held very much, so I didn't feel the comfort and support or the stabilization or security or safety of what it means to be held. I didn't have those things that need to be released, the brain chemicals of oxytocin and serotonin in the brain. That was not there. Also, I wasn't being breastfed, so the oxytocin that gets released during breastfeeding, I didn't have any of that. So I grew up to feel as an adult unwanted. I don't like to be touched. I don't like to be hugged. I'll do it with people I really, really like, but I don't like it. I don't enjoy it. This is also a problem in my marriage because I can be an ice queen sometimes. And all of this unraveling was happening in this year. Just this year, okay? And it started around this time last year. I was really starting to feel all of this come around and really reach full circle. And I was aware of this in my life before, but never to this degree where it had solidified so much in my conscious reality that I could make these connections. And when you make these connections emotionally, you feel the emotional tension of it, your fascia is making connections too. And so it'll tell you, well, this feeling that's associated with this memory is held here. So the places in my body where I've always had trouble, I'm very, very sorry if this is TMI, very, very painful menstrual cycles, extremely painful. A lot of energy in the sacral about creativity, productivity, being productive in the world, producing something meaningful from my creative ability or my imagination. Sacral, very, very affected. Feminine wounding, very affected. Not a good connection with me and mom, okay? Since I was a tiny human. All of this showing up in parts of my body. And so I didn't have to wonder, scratch my head anymore, like, this is why I have really, really painful issues. This is why I never wanted to bear children. This is like, and I know this is like super vulnerable and raw, but I want to help you guys. I want you to understand that this is all solvable. It's all figure outable. But we need to be able to understand that it's all connected. It's connected in the body. It's connected in the mind. It's connected in the heart. It's connected in the emotions. It's connected in the galactic. It's connected in the etheric. It's connected in the astral. Okay, it's connected throughout different timelines. And the fascia can help you bridge all this stuff. Okay? Thank you, thank you, thank you. This is good. I will see you in the container as well. Awesome, Corey. So, can you feel the power of what I'm talking about here? It's all connected. It's all connected. There is nothing, no part of you that exists as part of a closed system. Nothing in your reality exists in a vacuum. You think, I'm working on my spiritual journey. Honey, you are working on it all. It is not separate. When you say, I'm working on your spiritual journey, when you work on that one thing, do you notice how everything else comes into play? And you become more noticeable of other things that don't match up with this journey of being more spiritually connected, right? Because it's all part of one big open system, okay? And you can tell I get very, very passionate talking about this stuff. So, your fear, it's just your assumptions. It does not express the truth of reality, but it is kind of familiar in the body. Our fear, these assumptions, because we've had them so long, we have these assumptions about who we think we are. They're really based on a history of feeling fear of life, or feeling disconnected from life, or not feeling the wholeness of life, not feeling the wholeness of our experience of self. And so we create these assumptions. They're not true. They don't express reality, but they do express our experience of reality. Do you see the difference? Does that land with you guys? Our fears are just assumptions, and they do not express the truth of reality. They express our experience of reality. And so it comes down to perception every single time. And if your perceptions are long held, your misperceptions, is better said, are long held, they will take up energetic real estate in the body. And they will affect the flexibility of the fascia, because your fears, your assumptions make you inflexible to life. So if everything is an open system, then it affects the fascia, making you inflexible to life. Does this land? I told you this was going to make sense, and I hope it does. And please ask questions if this doesn't. So with desire, now this presents a different kind of quandary, but it's really just kind of the flip side of the same energy, really. So fear is very common to us, and it takes on many forms. And that's why it's so familiar to the body. And we've had long-held fears. If you have something that happened to you and your inner child is still affected by this, meaning, you know, all of us are essentially our inner child walking around as adults. So whatever we were wounded or traumatized by when we were little kids, if we don't have a conscious connection with moving it through the body and resolving it, it remains unresolved emotional tension. And here we are as adults in an adult body, having an adult life, adult responsibilities, but we are still walking around as our wounded inner child, okay? These fears, these assumptions, they've been with us for a lifetime, okay? Even these assumptions that we created 3-4 years ago, that's a long time to hold on to unresolved emotional trauma, right? It is. So fear is very common to us. We just accept it. We accept it so much that we live at this level of fear so often that we just say, this is just life. It is what it is. Because we've just accepted it. We've resigned our fate to just living in this level of fear, or this level of being held back, or that level of limitation. And we just accept it. Because that's who we perceive ourselves to be. But it is not the truth of who you are. And these fears take on many forms, these assumptions. That's why it's so familiar to the body. It is not good for the body, but it is very familiar to the body, okay? Now let's take desire. Desire fills us with a longing, right? Desire fills us with a longing, and it creates a cascade of very confusing feelings in the body. So Let's take your example of saying, all right, or I'm working on creating a greater spiritual connection. You know, my spiritual journey is that of becoming more connected to who I am and the truth of who I am. So this creates desires within you, right? You want to be able to live a life where you feel free, you feel open, you feel untethered, you feel unlimited, you want to feel boundless, right? And this creates different kinds of longings, right? These desires. So what does more free feel like? And you'll form a visualization in your mind of what that is. And this is a desire to, you know, find a way through your spiritual journey to stretch in order to accommodate or match the resonance of this desire, okay? So desire fills us with a longing, creates a cascade of very confusing feelings, because here we are on the spiritual journey, wanting to feel better, wanting to be better, wanting to live better, wanting to live in the wholeness of who we are and really feel that, really know it, really understand that truth and live within that. Okay, and that creates different desires. Those desires will look different for all of us depending on what we equate with feeling free or feeling open or feeling whole or feeling supported or feeling loved or feeling nourished. Okay, we want to accept and invite the feeling that the desire will provide, right? We want to call that into the body. But at the same time, the thoughts equated with your misperceptions, your assumptions, your fears, these feelings are very familiar to the body. So all your desires and the feeling that you want to have from what the desire provides is fighting against these fears in the body, creating more and more of this rigidity in the body itself, in the fascia. And we know, hopefully you know, because you've been on the spiritual journey for a while, that whatever is the strongest energy within you will win out every single time. And if your fears hold the most might and strength within you, then your fears will win the day every single time over your desires. Okay? If the thoughts equated with your misperceptions and feelings of being unworthy, of guilty, of feeling guilty or shameful or greedy, it gets mixed up in one big chaotic cocktail of mixed emotions, creating more rigidity in the body. Because the body feels that it has to reject against something or push something out. So this cascade of chaotic and this mixed cocktail of emotions is very uncomfortable for the body to hold. So it dehydrates you. It really dehydrates you. You ever notice how, man, if you're working through releasing some grief and sadness, maybe you're dealing with sadness, grief, or loss, and you cry and you release. Do you ever notice how thirsty you get? You get really, really thirsty. Some of you are like, well, I get thirsty for wine, so yeah. But I'm talking about your body feels dehydrated, okay? So when we're constantly processing very high energy, high intensity emotions, it pulls water out of the body. It's pulling it out of the fascia. And so that's why we have this feeling of feeling rigid towards life. Why we feel broken against life itself, why we feel like we don't have integrity and structure. We don't feel strong in our carriage. We don't stand up tall when greeting life because we physically can't. The body has lost its structural integrity. Even when you're experiencing very, very intense emotions of elation, ebullience, you're feeling like huge, magnificent, you're celebrating something. You're very thirsty in those moments too. Yes. Because the electrical impulses going from the fascia to all systems, all different networks in the body, that takes a lot of energy. Okay? And a lot of energy means pulling hydration. Okay? It's like when you do a workout. You go running. You got to have your electrolytes, right? You run marathons. That's why marathon runners have electrolytes. It feeds the body when it's depleted. You're doing a really intense, hot and heavy, hot yoga session. You got to have water, right? When you're processing very, very high intensity emotions, it's the same kind of thing. It takes a lot out of the body, okay? So back to the desire. Desire fills us with a longing and creates a cascade of confusing feelings in the body. We want to accept and invite the feeling that the desire will provide, but at the same time, that is fighting against the thoughts equated with all of our misperceptions, assumptions, and fears and feelings of being inadequate, incapable, unworthy, not trustworthy. We can't trust ourselves. We can't trust the world. We feel guilty. We feel shameful. We feel sad. We feel angry. We feel lost. We feel disappointed, distraught, unwanted. And it's this chaotic cocktail of mixed emotions. So we reject the desire. The fascia literally becomes rigid to the desire and rejects it. The body rejects the desire, and it will continue to until you make the feeling of the desire familiar, until you make it light, until you make it easy and safe to have it. This all has to do with the body. This all has to do with where you feel the acting emotions in the body and being able to not release it, process it consciously. Alchemize it so you turn it into fuel. That's why I call it moving emotional tension into creative tension. Because you're not releasing it, you're not moving it out. That's like saying you reject it outside of the body. You're rejecting plenty already. You don't need to reject more of yourself. You need to process, integrate, bring it in a way where that energy becomes more favorable and usable to the body in a positive way. Okay? So all of this, your fears and your desires, it affects the protective physical matrix of the fascia underneath the skin. We become stiff in our bodies because we've become rigid to the flux of our fear and unable to stretch to receive the full capacity of the desires. And here's the thing that we have to remember about our desires, okay? Our human destiny is an emotional destiny. So we're here to feel all the feels. I am making the feeling familiar, alchemizing, yes. Fear and desire is also about ebb and flow. It is about flux to flex, okay? It is our human destiny to be led by our desires. So when we're rejecting and we become rigid to our desires, we're becoming rigid to our natural human evolution because we are led by and through our desires and the intensity of their greatness to evolve through life. It is our desires that do that. So anyone who tells you desires are wrong, desires are greedy, especially if they're big and out there and maybe too lofty for you, okay, those are judgments based on your own fears or your own feelings of being incapable to hold them. Your body just simply isn't in a place where you can stretch to accommodate the fullness of that capacity to receive it. My physical therapist gently works my fascia all over my neck, yes, and upper arm. Needs to allow my shoulder to drop back in fully. Absolutely. It's the structural integrity around that area that will hold and support the arm, right? And it's not just around that, it's all connected. Because the body seeks and strives for homeostasis. That means balance. So whenever we have an injury, we experience an imbalance. This injury can be physical, it can be emotional, it can be mental, okay? Any kind of injury, something that is injurious to us, is an imbalance. And so the body is always seeking to correct that imbalance. So that means that a part of the body that is stronger will hold up that other part. If you've ever broken a foot or sprained an ankle, right? You get your crutches and you hobble around and, if you ever noticed, sometimes you build up the strength in your other leg. Say you sprain or injure or break your left ankle. So the right side of the body, particularly the right leg, will overcompensate in order to redirect the energy to the healing that needs to take place for the left ankle, right? All right. So our emotional states do this as well. So when we have a fear that is a common theme in our lives and oh so familiar to us, we compensate by doing certain things, having certain habits, voluntarily believing in certain things about ourselves in order to compensate for that fear, that assumption, that belief that isn't true. It doesn't express reality. It's just our experience or perception of reality. But we'll create something in life to balance out that imbalance. And usually it's through a behavior or habitual thought patterns that compensate for that feeling of iniquity, of being incapable. Does that make sense? And this is really powerful, especially when you think how much energy goes into compensating for these fears, aka assumptions. That's a lot of energy. If you're consciously working and processing that energy towards being creative fuel, creative tension, in other words, like being with the energy of your visualizations, the things you want to create, the things you want to manifest. Think about all that energy potential that's going towards keeping an old, habituated program of you going that isn't wholesome to your being. And if you move that over, roll over that potential towards being who you truly are, bringing those desires and making those desires familiar to the body instead of engaging in, yet again, this chaotic mixed cocktail of very troublesome emotions. Think about that for a second. And so our desires lead the way, always. It is by and through our desires and the intensity of their greatness that we access higher frequency being, and we evolve into the highest expressions of who we are and who we were always meant to be. Our desires lead the way, always. And taking that even further, that's why we must be really bold and vibrant and courageous and alive with a burning passion of our desires. Why they have to be big. Because without this kind of energy leading the way, we're going to feel like, why bother? If the energy of the desires aren't big enough, we aren't going to be able to match our higher frequency destiny. Because in our higher frequency destiny, we feel supported. We feel nourished. We know that we are worthy of love. We are worthy of everything. We're worthy of abundance. We're worthy of prosperity. We're worthy of fulfillment. We're worthy of satisfaction. We're worthy of being deeply nurtured and nourished and supported. Right? That is a higher frequency destiny of us. If we keep giving our desires, passing them over, throwing them under the rug for the sake of constantly compensating for the fear, you stay rigid in the body, you stay rigid in the mind, you stay rigid in your emotions, you stay rigid in your fascia. You are not higher level awareness because it is stretching, it's flexing. If physically you cannot flex, then emotionally, mentally you cannot flex. If emotionally and mentally you cannot flex, then physically you will not flex. Does this land? So that's why our desires have to be bold and vibrant and courageous. They have to be super, super bright, super big, because we have to want to be led forward by them. And if you compromise and keep settling, it's just another way that you compensate for the fear. You compensate for the assumptions. You settle for something that is less than the truth of you. Does this land? Does this resonate? Can I get a heart? Can I get a hell yes? Can I get anything? So the bigger, the more outrageous, the more unrealistic, the better. But the fear is the flux. You're going to feel the flux. So when you introduce a big, bold desire, you're going to feel the flux because the fear is going to come up. That's okay. Now you know what it is. And anytime we know what it is, then we can work with it. When it's made conscious to us, then it's just something we work through. It's just something we can tackle. It's figure outable. But maybe even before this conversation, what I'm talking about here was unconscious to you. Well, welcome to my world. Now it's conscious. Now you get to do something with it, hopefully. And you get to be an alchemist. You get to be proactive with this energy, and you get to transmute it for your highest and best benefit towards the energy potential fulfillment of satisfaction. That's how I feel too, Jante. If someone says to me that's unrealistic, I light up. Yeah, I can relate. Okay, so the fear is the flux. And when you have the flux, let's call it an ebb day. That's a day where you work through the fear. That's a day where you sit and dialogue with your shadow. That's a day where you call in divine healing intelligence, say, hey, disappointment, unworthiness, show me where you live in the body. Show me how I am changed for the better by transmuting this. We work with it intelligently. We work with it consciously. And we don't treat it like a closed system. We treat it as an open system. And we move the body as we release the fear. And these are very simple. I'm talking about the kind of movement that I'm talking about that initiates and calls attention to the fascia, saying, hey, we're going to move this out now. These are simple, extremely simple somatic exercises. I call them somatic sync. So if I'm working with a painful level of disappointment and these layers keep coming up, like we're not done healing, as long as we're drawing breath in this 3D plane of existence, we're experiencing the duality game and we're experiencing contrast, you're going to continue healing. It happens in layers, but it gets easier. And if you have a tool that helps you to move it out of the body, you don't have to go to the same strength of it. So each time the layer comes up, it lessens. And it takes up less energetic real estate in the body when you move it out of the fascia, or I better said is to move it with the fascia. Teach the fascia how to incorporate the movement of this fear as a lesson now learned. And now we get to transmute it and change it. So on these ebb days, the flux days, where we're feeling the fear, we're feeling the shadow, we're feeling all these misperceptions and assumptions that aren't true, nevertheless, they're holding up energetic real estate in the body. They are creating rigidity and inflexibility in the fascia. These are the days, the ebb days. We're not working on our manifestations. We're not trying to create momentum on our creations and manifestations on those days. We are working very proactively, very consciously, and intelligently with the flux. We're working with the ebb. And with somatic movement, we help to move that energy out and transmute it. Okay? Heidi says, Catherine, each time I see you live, you look more and more beautiful. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you, Heidi. It is a filter. Just so you know. I do have a pretty good skincare routine, and I will cop to that. And I drink plenty of water. I know I could always drink more, but it is also a filter. But thank you. I received that compliment, and I don't feel rigid in my body by receiving it, by the way. So we take that energy, we work with it intelligently. We work it through, we let it wash through every cell, the muscle, the organ, and the piece of connective tissue. Don't worry, I'm going to help you with this. I'm going to help you with this. This is what momentum of flow is about, okay? Then we alchemize the energy as fuel. We transmute it. Because remember, as I said at the beginning here, we are the molders and the manipulators of energy. We are the keepers of 3D. That's what we're here to do. We're here to make energy mutable in a physical world of form. That is what we do. Okay? So then, we teach the body how to move through the fear. We let it wash through every cell, every muscle, every organ, every piece of tissue, in the tendons. Okay? Then we alchemize the energy as fuel for creative solutions and elegantly simple outcomes. Yes. And in that space, you're like, well, how does that work? It's only when you enter that space can you see. It's like when you work with this fear intelligently in this way and you have it, you consciously move through the body. Then and only then are you in the space where you can remove the veil. And you can see the solutions that were right there in front of you. They're right there. And then you get to work with energy that's already within you. It's just now that you removed the layer or the veil that was there but didn't allow you to see it before. Okay? You can learn how to do this. And then we take the flow days, the flex days, I call them. We build momentum on vibrating in the resonance of our desires. We flex the body to hold the energy, the bigness of it, to teach our nervous system how to accept it, and then even be nourished by the intensity of the desire once manifested. So we can work with this in a visual capacity. We can work with it in a spoken capacity, using voice activation to give life to our desires through our words, our own language. And then we create the capacity to hold it without rejecting it. I mean, how many times have you been able to manifest something that was really wonderful and great, and you felt that fear instantly, and then next thing you know, you found a way to sabotage it. You found a way to get rid of this great thing. It's because the nervous system has not reached a calibration point or a capacity to hold it. The fascia is too rigid to be able to accept it and call it in and treat it like it's home. Or this desire is at home, would be another way to say it. Okay? So this is a really delicious space. If you haven't gotten that by what I'm talking about here, I invite you to listen again. And whenever you listen twice to any of the calls, 3 times, 4 times, to any of the calls that I share with you, you receive a deeper integration of the message. You just do, okay? So you may want to listen to this again. You may want to listen to key parts again. This is an easy yes, this container. I have offered it to you. I am offering it to you as an easy yes. It's 2 powerful calls a month in Momentum of Flow. We work with flux and flex. The days we're working with fear, 2 calls a month. We have a fear call and a desire call, a flux call and a flex call, an ebb call and a flow call. And we have somatic exercises introduced. Easy, simple, somatic sync exercises to use when we're releasing fear, and also teaching the body to invite in and hold and keep the capacity of our desires, the full capacity of our desires. This is a very inspired container. This is stuff that I've been using this year. It has changed how I do shadow work. It has changed how I look at myself. It has changed my perception on my identity. I've stripped down so much of my identity that was based on a lot of fear, to be quite honest. And a lot of needs to be competent, appear competent, to feel wanted or accepted or appropriate in the world, which I realize goes against my nature of being a revolutionary visionary and being a maverick or a rebel in life. To be here to do things differently. These things were at odds with my deeper core principles and truth of how I want to live my life and how I want to lead my community. So I've been able to strip all this down, and I'm not holding it in the body. It's not taking up valuable energetic real estate in the body anymore, because I've figured out how to alchemize and transmute the energy. So it's now being used as creative fuel, which only and ever opens me up more and more to what I'm asking for. And what I'm asking for is being able to receive bigger and more profound downloads, higher messages infused with more light, and being able to take this in. Yes, it keeps me up usually from 4 until 5:30 in the morning, but that's okay, because that's when the energy comes in and that's when I'm primed and ripe to receive it, and that's fine. But I'm receiving what I'm asking for, and I'm able to take it in without rejecting it. Things that I'm creating in my life, I'm creating and building a retreat right now, a physical retreat, which I've wanted to do for a long time. I had to deal with my own levels of unworthiness or incapability of doing it. That's why I procrastinated for so long. And I call it procrastinating. That's not really what it was. It was just that what I wanted to do, my desire was at odds with my fear. And so now I've opened up to that. I've been able to receive more money and keep it and work with it more responsibly. I've been able to call in more love and more connection, because I want to do that. I want to do that with the people in my life. I want to hug people and like it. This is going to take some work. I want more, intimacy with the people in my life, whether it be romantic, sexual, platonic, or otherwise. So I can call this in and receive this in the body now without rejecting it, because it's not at odds with my fears anymore. There are so many ways that this energy translates, and it's all very individual. It's all very personal, right? Our fear and our desire. But we get to be in a group container together and work through these together. And I get to hold space for you for that. And you get to ask questions. And these calls, even though they'll be twice a month, it's a Facebook group. So we have a group of support. It's going to be a private community. The calls will be on Zoom, but the support will be in the group. The somatic exercises will all have tutorials. And again, these are not hard, difficult. Even if you have impingements or you have restriction in the body, these are easy somatic exercises that anyone can do. And there'll be very simple instructions for you to do them. I will even have videos in some cases or audio instruction for you to be able to do them. And I'll be performing them in the classes, so you'll be able to see them. I am not a doctor. I am not a massage therapist. I have had anatomical training, but not accredited anatomical training. So I'm not a medical professional. I'm an energy healer. I'm a light worker. I want you to understand that this is something that we're not asking you to do, like deep trauma release here, anything like that. Can I hold space for that? Absolutely. But I'm not a doctor. I'm not an MD. Okay. So that is a full disclaimer right there. But this is a space to release, where we're holding painful emotional areas in the body that don't feel that they are receiving the wholeness of our light and our love and our attention. And some of us have had these spaces for a long time. And when these spaces remain active, meaning they are active physical spaces that hold the fear in place, you're creating more and more rigidity in the body. And when we get to consciously work with this, with movement, with somatic flow, it is such a powerful experience of release and relief. And with the energies ramping up on this planet, it's not like this is going to stop anytime soon. So this is an opportunity for you to get real support with that in a way that it is an easy yes. It's only $88 until the 22nd, so $88 a month. This is a membership. So when you sign up, every month at that time, it'll automatically renew unless you cancel. And you can just join for 1 month. But if you can't join and then opt out and then rejoin, because that's a lot of work on my end, because I do everything. So if you want to try it for 1 month and then opt out, that's cool. But you can't opt out and then rejoin and opt out and then rejoin. That's not something that I can allow, because it's too much. It's too much for me to keep track of. But you can cancel your membership at any time, okay? On the 22nd, the night of the 22nd of November, it goes up to $99 a month. So it's still under $100 for 2 very powerful calls, and we go for 6 months. We go for 6 months. So this is going to go until the end of May 2023. So I hope you're going to join us. I hope that this has landed with you and maybe opened up and stretched you a little bit. And I want to leave you with a very, very quick and easy example, just to show you how simple these exercises are. So when I think about, let's just say financial stress, okay? So if I'm working with numbers just stress me out. They just do. Over time, I've recognized that this creates emotional tension within me when I work with numbers, when I work with finances, when I'm, doing the back end part of my business or whatever. And if I think too much about the numbers and all the money going out and my investments and things like that, and how am I going to get money back? I mean, I still spin out in this way every once in a while. And when I do, I get very conscious of the energy of, okay, where do I feel the fear? I feel it in between my solar plexus and my sacral, okay? And so I put my hands there and I call to divine healing intelligence. Okay, you move that through. And then I work with that energy, and don't worry, I'll show you how to do this in momentum of flow. And then just to make sure, I do a clean sweep. Where else do I feel this? And a lot of times I feel it in my jaw. So I will clench my jaw. And so I take my knuckles, the knuckles of my index finger and my middle finger of both hands, and I place them around the soft pad of my chin, right in the center of the chin. And then I pull the energy up and I stretch the energy around the jaw and pull it up, and I have my jaw open, and I let my knuckles massage the space, the open cavity there in between the mandible, okay? And then I just massage there for a moment, and then I pull with my knuckles down on the skin on both sides of the neck, down past the collarbone, and then right into the soft tissue below the collarbone. And then I massage there. So I'm moving lymph, but I'm also releasing tension in the fascia around the jaw and the mandible. And I just do it for 2 or 3 times. And when I'm doing it, I focus on the fear of the numbers that I feel. And I just let it go. And I transmute it. And I call in divine healing intelligence. And I transmute that energy. I now move this into creative flow. I transmute this energy into creative flow, creative ideas, greater imagination. And as I'm speaking this out loud, it's very important for me to speak out loud because my voice is an activation, yours too. And then I consciously work with the energy. And I feel the energy of the jaw loosen up. And I feel the energy that also builds up in my chest. I feel that loosen up. And then I move and shake it out of the body. Also very simple. Standing up with your feet shoulder width apart and just bouncing on the balls of your feet and shaking out your body after you do any and all of these somatic sync exercises, that creates a release in the body. It opens up the nervous system to receive whatever energies are coming in. It is very calming, absolutely, Jante. And it is refreshing. It revitalizes you. It creates a new energetic set point for the body. And then when you have this habit of doing this, the jaw will cue to you very quickly, oh, I have tension here, or the belly, or your foot, or your kneecap, or wherever. And it just becomes easier to move the energy and to translate the energy into a different form, to alchemize it. So I hope you'll join us in this container. This is going to be absolutely amazing. You're going to love it. This is, yes, easy as far as the somatic exercises. The simplicity depends on your willingness to be free. The simplicity of this work, to the degree you'll experience ease and flow with it, is to the degree that you've got to this place, this decision of, I'm ready to be done with this shit. It literally got to a point with me where I was like, I am so tired of this shit. I am so tired of my own shit. Because it's not anybody else's. It's yours. And when we get to consciously work with it in that way, it's powerful. It is so amazing. And it is a constant release of energy or movement of energy, transmutation of energy that only opens you up. It only serves to open you up to a capacity to receive what you're asking for. You have a greater capacity to receive when this energy gets to move and shake and change form. Thank you, Luna. Thanks for dropping by. So there it is, folks. All the information you need to grab the offer is down below. Claim your spot. I'm going to open up the group very soon, probably before the 1st of December. Our first call is on December 5th. This is our ebb call. You'll receive your first somatic exercise. We'll work through this in class. We'll work through ebb and fear. This is discussion. This is energy healing with divine healing intelligence. And this is somatic sync movements. And then we have our flow call. I forget the date right now, but then we'll have a flow call after. We'll work with the same kind of energy, but we'll talk about building momentum on our desires. We'll talk about how we create the flex in the body to open up the capacity to receive the desire in its fullness without rejecting it, and another somatic sync exercise and fascial exercise to help you integrate that. Powerful stuff. Powerful stuff. So I can't wait to see you in here December 5th. Our first call, 1 p.m. Pacific time. All calls will have replays. I know we're at different times and places in the world, so these calls will be offered at different times to accommodate different people in the world. So there's that. But you also have access to the replays. And the calls will go an hour and a half or so, perhaps longer, depending on the questions and depending on what you need help moving through or integrating, okay? Lots of support in this group. I cannot wait. I'm so excited about this container. I cannot wait. So on the 22nd is when $88 a month expires, then it goes up to $99 a month. You can cancel anytime. So you can just come for the month of December, see if you like it. You'll love it and you'll want to stay, but you can opt out if you want to after that, okay? Lots of love and peace to you all. Mwah. Bye-bye.